and get started. So welcome everyone to our COVID info session on supporting our Latinx families and communities as the schools start to reopen, whatever that ends up looking like. My name is Juan Brandoni. I'm the training director here at El Futuro, so I want to give you all a big welcome and thank you all for joining us today. Hoping that today will be pretty interactive. So if you feel comfortable turning on your video, we would really appreciate it because I'm looking over here at the screen and it's nice to see your all's faces instead of black screens. And if you have trouble with your sound, you can always hit the little caret, test your speaker and microphone, and then that'll walk you through it. So today, like I said, will be pretty interactive. So we'll give a brief overview of resources that we have used and found helpful. Again, this is all, as you know, a moving landscape or shifting landscape, whatever the expression is, as we try to figure out what's going to happen and how we can support folks. So we at El Futuro by no means have the best or all the information. We're just wanting to put some things out there for you. And then I want to invite you all on the call to share things that you've found helpful or things that are being done in your area of the state to support Latinx families or really just families in general as we transition back into school. So we'll go into some of those resources first, and then we'll open it up to discussion where we're hoping to just get an idea of what things are looking like across North Carolina and how we can all come together to share ideas and resources to best support the Latinx community. So we'll start off with a poll to get an idea of who is here and where you all are coming from. So Sophia's gonna put up a poll. And apparently I can't see this poll, so I'm just gonna trust that it's coming. And I don't know if I'll see it when you publish it, Sophia, but if not, I might have you read it out to me. Or to everyone.
Yeah, Juan, I'm not sure if you can see the results or not.
Nope.
Interesting. Sorry about that. But most of us, unsurprisingly, are coming from the Triangle, but we're happy to see people from Western and Southwestern North Carolina, as well as one representation from the Triad. So keep them coming. We love it.
Nice.
Excuse me, this is Mary Evers. I tried to click on Eastern, but I cover 5 counties, so there's some Triangle and some Eastern.
Gotcha.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
mark that as well. Thank you, Mary.
Okay.
All right, glad to have you all here. So I wanted to put this out first. So we are consistently trying to advocate for the Latinx community through our programming. And we're trying to do advocacy at the policy level. And so we're wanting to show how our La Mesita programming is hopefully impacting providers across the state in their ability to provide services during the time of COVID. So if we would ask you, Sophia's gonna put in the chat the link for this survey. If you can, after today's session, it takes about maybe 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at most. To complete this. It would really help us out. So if you can take a second to do that, we'd really appreciate it. What is this distance learning and this education picture looking like as we head into the fall? And I guess we've gotten a glimpse of it too from when things shut down back in March. And what we've seen consistently here is that there is a disparity in terms of access to education resources among Black, Brown, and Latino communities. So according to Pew, 86% of white Americans own a computer versus 58 for Blacks and 57 for Hispanics. And we have seen this bear out in terms of disparities in how connected Latinx families have been able to stay, not just because of technology or resource issues, but then also it's been a language issue. I know we've spoken with a number of organizations who have had to intervene, and I've even had to do this with my own clients where I'm calling the school and trying to advocate for my clients to get the information they need from the school for their kids to go back in the fall. And then, just across North Carolina, there's also like high speed internet access disparity. So the darker areas here show the areas where there's more of a lack of connectivity. So this is just really to illustrate that this is a widespread issue and something that we have an important role as providers in how we step in and support our Latinx families. So I have here a little chart that our Conexiones, or our case management team, has put together, roughly with what it's going to look like in terms of the reopenings. So I think some of these have changed. So I think Chapel Hill Carver at first was going to do virtual learning for like 8 weeks or 6 or 9 weeks, something like that. And now they've changed to fully virtual. Chatham County, it'll begin at-home learning for at least the first 4 weeks. Durham Public Schools, it seems like they're going under Plan C with remote instruction for all students for the first quarter. Orange County, it'll begin for at least 4 weeks with at-home learning, and Wake will begin their classes with online instruction. So these things are shifting, and I really searched around for a centralized source where it's outlining what each county is doing, but really I think it's such a not uniform process that it seems to be going through, where each school is kind of like a case-by-case basis in terms of what they decide to do. So I'm curious to hear about you all from across the state, what these things are looking like for you all, and how you all are responding to it. So one thing that I think we can do is to help our Latinx families through advocacy. One thing that can be helpful is to provide the latest guidelines on safety. We have a great intern working with us that's taking care of our Instagram page, and I follow us on Instagram, and I get these, it's basically daily or twice daily infographics in Spanish and English that can be sent to clients. So it's gonna ask me to log in, but anyways, there's some really good things here that I highly recommend you check out, or give the El Futuro, it's El Futuro NC, at El Futuro NC page a follow. This one I really enjoyed. It talks about the risk of someone who has COVID and someone who doesn't have COVID, depending on whether they wear masks or not, what are the risks. And just a really good resource that I recommend you all check out. The other one is kind of what I mentioned already, is to act as a liaison and interpreter. That's something that we've found helpful. And again, all these things that I'm suggesting, I imagine you're all already doing. I'm probably not telling you anything new, but just sharing what we've been doing, what's been helpful for us. The other thing to think about as schools reopen is how to help EC parents to advocate for services for their kids. We at El Futuro here developed a sample email, and Sophia will put this in the link for you all as well. It just gives parents a pretty easy fill-in-the-blank email that they can send to, or a letter that they can send to the school requesting that their child receive their IEP or their EC services. And here are also the guidelines for COVID-19 reopenings. And these basically say, I breezed through this a little bit, but essentially it's saying, even though schools are reopening remotely, families still have a right to have their typical process for IEPs, for getting an assessment, reassessment, and then delivery of the IEP to their child. So just good things to keep in mind, remind our families about, and then also advocate for them if they need that support. The other things I wanted to share, and Ismael, feel free to jump in here. Ismael is one of our clinicians and also case managers at El Futuro. North Carolina has developed a few programs that are trying to tackle the disparities in access. So this link here, the first one is a list per county of the free public Wi-Fi access. So if you scroll down, you can find your county, and then once you hit it, it'll give you more information, and has the address for these places, so you can help direct families to those. There's also the Wi-Fi on a Bus partnership. So this is something that the NC Department of Information Technology has developed, where they're going to outfit buses that are going to drive around and act as mobile hotspots for our families. And like the other link you have here, it's separated by county. So you can go to that, and it will tell you, it's having a problem loading right now, but it will tell you how to get into finding out where those buses can be located. And then lastly, just some information on Wi-Fi discount programs. They list out the providers here, and they will mention kind of the rates that they have, and this might be something that some folks might be able to afford, maybe not, but just wanted to have this information here for you all. I know a number of other folks that we've been working with are trying to find funding to procure hotspots and give those out to the families that they serve, and that's another great strategy. But really, like I said, I'm hoping to hear from you all, and when we get into the discussion about what strategies you are all using to try to help our families. So before I go to that, any questions about any of these things that I've presented so far? It's pretty clear stuff. So yeah, I'm curious to hear about, from y'all's communities, what are the things that you're hearing from your Latinx families, or just families in general, as schools reopen? What are some concerns you're hearing out there from folks?
One of the things I'm hearing is a lot of confusion from not just the Latinx families, but all of our families of color. Because the schools out where I am have said one thing and then changed their minds, and then changed their minds again. And we're about, what, a week away, 2 weeks away from the kids supposedly going back to school. And one of the towns where I work, Roanoke Rapids, has a very large charter school, a city school system, a county school system, and another small city system. So we've got 4 systems we're trying to keep track of just in that area, and they're all doing something different. So parents will talk to somebody, but their kids don't go to the same school system, and then they think something's going on. So I have spent a lot of time in the last week or so, when I'm seeing families, just getting on the school websites and saying, well, it says here as of today they're doing this. Yeah. So it's extremely confusing for families.
Sure. Mary, I wonder if you can remute. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's been our experience as well, and that's crazy. I mean, and I'm sure other people can relate to having the different systems, and each one has their own procedures and changes they're making. And I know Victoria Romero, who drafted that little chart that I provided for triangle counties, she was making updates on that until yesterday. So that's just kind of the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But yeah, so it sounds like confusion is one of the main things that you're hearing from folks out there. What are other folks hearing from your Latinx families, or families in general? Maybe yourselves too. This is also a time for us to commiserate on our own experiences with all of this.
Hey, my name is Emily. I'm with the Vecinos program in Western North Carolina. We're based out of Jackson County. What I've heard, yesterday I was speaking with a mother of in Macon County in the Cashers Highland area. And I guess her school system is giving them the option of either letting their children go to school or staying home and taking their classes virtually. And her concern was, on the one hand, she's nervous about sending her kids to school where she thinks they're going to be exposed. But I think her experience during the last school season, she doesn't speak any English. And I think she was very frustrated feeling that she couldn't help her kids with their online classes. They're all like elementary, middle school aged. And she felt like she was at a huge advantage compared to, and I know other parents, English speaking parents, had frustrations and challenges as well, now becoming teachers as well as parents. But she was asking me about resources, saying she felt especially frustrated about not being able to help her children. And also, as you mentioned before, not having enough devices for her children. She has 3 children and they only have 1 computer in the house, and she needs her phone for work, so she can't leave her phone with her children all day. So just wanting to be able to maintain virtually for the safety of her children, but also not being able to really support her children in being successful because of language barrier and not having devices.
Definitely, and I think you're getting at like the heartbreaking decisions that parents are being forced into making about my child's safety or my child's education. And yeah, I think the other thing that's a concern and something that we try to talk about is like, just kind of, at least in, you know, we mainly focus on providing therapy here at El Futuro, so just creating space for those concerns. And then thinking about if someone in the family becomes infected or tests positive, what do you do then? What kind of safety measures do you take to isolate that person in the home, to keep everyone else safe? I mean, it's a harrowing situation. I'm wondering if there are any folks on the call who work in the schools who might be going to teach in the fall or have some kind of, you know, position in schools. What's been your experience with all of this?
Hey Juan, I don't work for the school system, but I work closely with them. And one thing for Orange County schools is that they have extended for the first 9 weeks to be virtually. And then things could change like next week, right, for the first semester, because we do almost the same as the Chapel Hill Cover City school system. So I wouldn't be surprised to next week to be announced that we will extend for the first semester to the fully virtual. One thing that I wanted to share with you all is that families on the Latinx families are very frustrated about virtually, because especially on a single family home, that they have to go to work in order to pay bills and eat. So it's like very challenging for them to think about, like, I have to leave my kids with the older sibling because I have to go to work. On the other hand, like Orange County schools and Chapel Hill Carver City schools are giving a lot of support to families with hotspots. All of the students will get a computer, and kindergarten students will get an iPad. For Orange County schools, they haven't sent the schedules, but they're working on it. So every school will send their information in a different basis, but we only have a week, you know, like for all the families to have it and receive all the devices for the ones that are new at the schools, and to receive the schedules, and, you know, to plan your life for the next school year, for this coming school year, basically. We are fortunate to have the school support. One thing is that parents are worried about many of our Latinx community. They don't have high education level, and also they don't speak English. So it's like a huge barrier for them. Like, they don't know how they will support the kids from K to 5th grade to get into the computer and sign up and meet with the teacher. So yeah, it's been very challenging for them. The school systems, I know they're planning to have like YouTube link for parents, but it's not out yet. So we are still waiting. And so, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's, yeah, it's just like, it's scary that, like you're saying, it's like a few weeks away and then we're still waiting on guidelines on these things. We're still waiting on those resources.
Juan?
Yes, go ahead, Maria.
Well, from this end, I will just share, well, I'm with New Hanover and I am a 10-month employee, although I have been, supporting a few hours a week, but it has indeed, as everyone has shared, and the lady that just spoke, we have experienced the same, challenges, and still in the mind, it's like that factor, who is going to keep my younger children, who is this person that, that I could possibly find to care for them, but yet may not be necessarily having the time or the patience to help my child the same way she's going to help hers. Because like there's this mom in this particular neighborhood, she is a stay-home mom, and so she agreed to keep some of the other mothers' children so that those moms can go to work. But then how is that really going to create an environment with 6, 7 kids in the home to, whereas it's intended to help and support one another, there's still going to be that fragility to that area of making sure they're all connected. How still, getting them to do what is required. So, that's still a thought, a worry. Also, particularly challenging parents of special ed students. I have also been supporting many of those. Like, for example, I happen to have a couple of families where they have more than one child who is autistic and who have challenges. So these moms have also been, very overwhelmed, and we're all trying with other supports in the community and myself trying to support that. But still it's tough because at heart they all want their children to do well and to learn. Then we've also experienced the cry of parents with older children where they feel they cannot make them do. And some of them like really checked out during the spring, like they were not, interested or putting the effort that was required. And, many said that they were simply just not coming back and use that as a, as a reason, let's put it that way. And then, so that is also tough because it's very hard to try to reach out and talk to the students when you're having to do it over the phone. See, during regular semester, I go in and I meet with the students one-on-one. I do the counseling, go in the classrooms, try to reach in some other ways, but now it's just a little bit harder. And then, we're trying to support families and by putting out videos and instructions in Spanish on our website and different resources to help them navigate the different platforms. And, for Google Classroom, Seesaw, Dojo, all the different, platforms, we're trying to do that. We've had community support also in efforts of that nature. We are handing out laptops and hotspots to the students, trying to hold open house through drive-throughs so that the students get to see the staff. And also through the window, we hand out the laptops, materials, and things that, you know, they might need. But, you know, it's one of those things where there's so much also to take into account, because the logistics of following the state guidelines, in you know, all that is required, and then the short amount of time of preparation, because staff members like teachers get back on the 10th and schools are supposed to open on the 17th. So how do you train and equip and put together? I don't know. It's definitely been, you know, it's a challenge. It is.
Definitely. I think you just captured just about everything there. Maria, I wonder if you can mute real quick. Thank you. Yeah, all of the challenges, you know, from ranging from teachers in the schools to parents at home. I think your comment was echoed by Jenny Lopez in the chat, who says it's also very concerning for single parents with young children or parents who can't work from home. Those are the groups at highest risk because they can't really stop working, or they might not be able to have childcare. And like you said, even if they have childcare, what does that look like? And is it safe? I want to call on Lori. I see you've unmuted. Go ahead, Lori. You're a teacher in Forsyth?
I am. I teach ESL, so I teach English as a second language, but I also speak Spanish, fortunately. The greatest concern, you know, after the fact, you know, we had preparation for going to remote learning by spring semester being completely online, but the crisis version of it. What I know now is that my students need, not necessarily that they need synchronous learning where they can see my face, but they should have been front loaded with the information on how to access the information online. And so trying to talk in Spanish to a child, not being able to see what they can see, and walk them through the steps to get to a class that I am not a co-teacher for in different learning platforms was incredibly difficult. And it was incredibly difficult because of the parents having no knowledge of what we were even doing. You know, a lot of the parents had no training either on what learning platforms were available, what learning platforms the teachers were using, because everyone assumed that the kid's getting it in school, and when the child is learning it at school, that they're carrying that information home. But a lot of teachers are blind still to the fact of the difference between what their home life may look like and their raising may be like compared to ESL students, whether they speak Spanish or any language in reality, because of cultural differences and then economic differences, social differences. And so Karen Smith, the teacher, will send home all of this information in English, assuming that Juanito is going to translate it for mom and dad if mom and dad don't know English. And Juanito doesn't know academic English very well, but Karen wrote it that way. So Juanito gets it home and he says, forget it, mom and dad can't understand. And then we send things home with a computer now. And there's a big gap. There's a big moat around the castle. The castle being the central office, and then the moat being the families that live in the outlying communities, especially the Latinx communities, because there is no one who looks like them, speaks like them, is them in the central office hierarchy. And so there's nobody to give the people who are making the rules a lot of insight as to what home might look like and what home might be like. And a lot of the other teachers were asking me to call home, and I knew what I was going to get, which was Juanito was at work with Juan. He went to work with dad, because you know why? We don't know how to work the computer. The hotspot we borrowed from the school system only works from 8 to 5, and guess when Juanito is needed most? From 8 to 5. And so he slid through the cracks for a week. And finally, the teacher asks me, because I can speak Spanish and call the house. I call, I talk to mom. Mom says she'll do something about it. But in reality, we need the money right now, So there was a lot of discrepancies. My concern is that this fall, they are trying to make all children log on at a specific time. And they are saying that is how attendance will be counted for each student. And if Juanito works till 5 o'clock, but he's willing to work from 5:30 to 11 o'clock at night on everything he needs to do, I don't see why we should be concerned. But they're wanting Juanito to log on at 8:30, at 9:30, at 10:30, he gets a break, and then at 1:30, and the day's over. And if he's not there for those 4 days, and he's not there for a series of days, then DSS gets called because he is now an absent child and his parents are unfit parents, and we've got to do a home visit. And as legal or illegal family members, that is a cause of concern in communities, and pandemic and health issues going on now. Anyway, it is just, I think a lot of people aren't considering people that they can't speak to. That's the best way I can say it. They're just not considering the people that don't speak English and don't have a voice in the central office systems for schools. That's all I got. Sorry.
No, thank you, Lori. And I mean, I can hear and I share your frustration and what you shared.
I love my children and I try my best to advocate to anybody who will listen. But unfortunately, the crystal towers are just that. And I'm just the fife that lives beyond the moat,
Mm-hmm.
So I do what I can, and I speak my truth as in opportunities like this with people who have a communal voice that can maybe make a difference for the kids, and especially the kids whose parents don't have a voice yet. So I appreciate being here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people appreciate your voice, Lori, in the chats. Several folks are saying, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Because I think that's why I was saying, like at the beginning, like we have to act as advocates sometimes, because I mean, we've talked to Kano Family Services, and Angela, I wonder if I can put you on the spot for that, but they're a mental health organization, but they were finding themselves when schools shut down in March, round the clock, having to call the schools, call the families, and acting as interpreters and liaisons because the schools were just didn't have enough. And again, we don't want to vilify or demonize the schools here. It's because they're doing their best with the resources they have. But it does, I think, one of the points I hope that we're making today is that in whatever ways we can step up in our communities, it's going to make a huge difference. Angela, are you there?
I am. I'm here. I'm sorry. And yes, I agree with everything that you mentioned. And, oftentimes we know that Latinx families have less of access to resources and information because of the limitations with language. And, when I myself as a parent am getting emails and connect eds, and all of them are in English. And so, we have Spanish speaking families who are completely disconnected with what the plan and expectations are for their children and their families. And I can, one of the things that we try to do is serve as liaisons, which is really outside of kind of the scope of, we're going to have a therapy session, but how can we focus on that when this family has so many other stressors that are kind of impacting what's going to happen the next week or 2 or 3 or 4. So most often we're serving as liaisons, trying to connect them with student support services, team members from within the school, trying to figure out exactly what the specific plan is for the specific school, because even though there's a general plan for the school district, each individual school is adjusting to the very specific needs of that particular school. So it can look very different for every single child, and there could be multiple children in every family.
Thank you, Angela. I want to bring in real quick, Alicia Stoft, if you feel comfortable speaking up, because you seems like you work from DPS and you can provide some clarity about how things will go down, or the mandates you all are receiving for the fall. Alicia, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I teach second grade for Durham Public Schools, and I think they're doing the best job that they can to address a lot of these issues. Distributing hotspots, they're laying Google Fiber through public housing. Every kid will be getting a Chromebook. All 33,000 students get a Chromebook. Our school specifically just voted on a parent communication platform that translates into 55 different languages. So the school systems are doing a lot to try to address these issues. We as teachers are required to record all our live lessons. So even though the kids are expected to be on during school times, if they can't, they do have other options. It's not you have to be there or you lose out and your parents are going to get called. If you're not showing up, then the message we've gotten is reach out to the families, not, call social services on them. Let's see what we can do to help. We know that this is a hard time and they're not just brushing off school.
Thank you for sharing that, Alicia. Because I feel like that can sometimes happen. I mean, I know that there are frustrations, and I think it's a larger systemic issue, and that I think folks that are working in schools and in service provision like we're doing the best we can, and it's about trying to work together on these things. I have a couple of other messages. Oof, there's like 9 messages, so it's hard for me to read through them. So if folks feel brave, just go ahead and unmute and share, because I'm going to do a poor job of addressing them.
I can share a little bit. I'm a school social worker, and we haven't been given any kind of like direct instruction yet about how we'll handle attendance this year. But my guess is similar to what Alicia was saying, that it will be very flexible. And certainly at my school, I have no, like I said in the chat, I have no interest or intention about any kind of truancy court or referral to DSS. I mean, things are just very different. And it's so much more about reaching out to families and addressing some of those issues that Lori was talking about and what Maria was talking about. And in Chapel Hill, we use Google Classroom and Google Meets. And in the spring, we had one after another Google Meet with families and our district interpreters and translators, where we would explore what was going on and try to brainstorm. And I'm sure that will continue. And we are very fortunate in Chapel Hill also that all students will be receiving laptops. And the change that Chapel Hill is making this year is the hotspots that students receive will also have unlimited data on them. That was definitely a huge issue last year with students running out of data or students sharing data. So I'm excited that there'll be unlimited data now with those hotspots. But a couple other kind of like concerns that I've heard, at least in this community, I'd be interested to hear if other people are hearing about pods. I don't know if that's kind of the word of the day where you all are, but there's definitely a lot of talk about families getting in pods and supporting one another as far as childcare, but also hiring tutors, hiring teachers, and the worry about the school district becoming even more segregated about which families will be able to do that and which families will kind of create pods together, who that's going to leave out, who that will leave behind. And then, just basic needs too. The few families I've heard from, and I'm also 10 months, so I'm not quite back into it yet, continued worries about rent and utilities. And with the state restrictions on, evicting families and turning off utilities and that kind of thing coming to an end, excuse me, I know that will be more and more of an issue. And of course that is going to take priority, way over everything else if that's going on.
I agree with you. And, you know, for as most of us here, I'm sure, you know, remember that for any learning, for any meaningful learning to take place, you know, Maslow explains it really well. Basic needs need to be met. And again, a great deal of time, I find, you know, it's what will most likely have to take place in order to potentially get to that place where we want the kids to feel comfortable and find some sort of you know, value into the next thing they're to do, which is the academics, because kids are going through so many motions and so many uncertainty and not knowing what tomorrow is going to look like next week. I mean, if it's that for the adults, I mean, I feel like we all have experienced that. You know, what is a DPI going to say next week? What is the governor going to announce in another 2 weeks? You know, what is it going to be at every level? Students are also going through that. Students who have experienced death in their family as a result of COVID. I have had students going through that. Also, where all family members have been sick, or where they are all of a sudden moving with another family so that they can together, you know, fulfill, you know, obligations in order to survive. You know, the lack of social connections. I have had families where there has been some domestic violence issues and, you know, kids witnessing arrest of a parent, kids who are new. I have had students who also came in January and we're still having a hard time trying to get adjusted to living here. And then all of a sudden, all of these. So I think that indeed spending that time listening and allowing them to speak to their classmates or to those others, you know, and teachers that, you know, that would have known them from prior. It's going to be important in establishing some sense of trust, if we can call it like that.
Definitely. Thank you, Maria. And I think, you know, we're all kind of painting this picture that it's just this very uncertain and ever-changing landscape, and it's going to look very different depending on where we are and how we respond. So I just want to bring back a few more comments. So Tal Matalon, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It seems like for you, the school attendance policies will be very strict versus some others where they're saying they'd be more flexible and understanding. And then I think, Christy, you're sharing that you had a very similar experience to Lori in terms of advocating for your Latinx families. So I want to invite either of you, if you feel comfortable, to share your experiences in your schools.
Yeah, as far as Gaston County schools, I think we're still kind of on a tentative plan. I think there's an emergency board meeting later, so there's just a lot of confusion. But I guess my frustration is that I do work in the central office, but I don't hold an admin position, and so I feel like I'm not able to have the say or check in about a lot of these things, although I'm doing kind of behind the scenes and just trying to get more information from all areas. The good thing is there are only 2 of us, but we're able to support our school counselors. So our school counselors kind of triage if there's any student with any mental health need, and they know I'm bilingual, so they can refer that family to me and I can assist. But it's just having the lack of information right now. The one thing we were able to do is that we were working on kind of a running document, like a Google Doc for school staff that they're supposed to, again, it depends on the admin, but distribute to the staff just to support with all of these stressors that students will be dealing with, because all the research and all of the information coming out is that we do have to focus on education, but we have to really support the students emotionally. And so we're trying to find just psychoeducation, some relaxation techniques, things that schools can incorporate virtually, and also if they are doing in person. And so we're really hoping they're going to use that and they can call on us as supports to guide them.
It's really great to hear that y'all are doing that. And I mean, it's a good segue in a way to, you know, how folks are supporting each other in the area. And I want to, I guess, maybe focus a little bit on the mental health issue, because this is something that I've been seeing with my teen clients, my child clients. They're all, number one, fed up of being stuck at home with family and doing the same thing every day. And number two is they miss their routine, they miss their friends. And now for many of them, that's not going to happen in the fall. So, you know, I think one of the things that makes me think of is like, can we get creative in ways to help these kids feel connected to one another in ways that somehow mimic what they would experience in their school days? But I think that connection is something that's so basic, but so ubiquitous when you're in that school setting. But yeah, I think the mental health is important to address. Go ahead, whoever.
Hey Juan, this is Kenny Parmenter. I work for Vecinos and Heights. Heights is an organization that works in the school with adjudicated youth, but since March we've been really planning on ways to engage students even when they're not in school. And so one of the ways that we've done that is through virtual programming. And so every week we would put out a packet of mental health handouts in terms of relaxation techniques or journaling activities, or just like silly games and things you can do in the house. And then later in the week, we have an online meeting where we invite the kids to get together and we just run an online program. So talking about some of the activities that we handed out, practicing some of those things in person, doing some group exercises. And at first they were really low attended. It picked up a little bit and then dropped back off. And so now at the end of the summer, we're starting to put those systems back in place to continue to help support kids in the community in the Jackson County schools throughout the next semester.
Thanks, Kenny. I think that's really brilliant. I think that's something that we're trying to do at El Futuro, is to set up parent support groups or child support groups from the mental health side, but really liaise with the schools in terms of how we recruit folks to jump into that. I think that's a great idea. Go ahead.
This is Lynn. I'm at El Futuro, and one of the things that comes to mind, I hear that I really hear that schools are doing a lot, as you know, and in their situations, and so I hear a lot about just one of the things is communication between the school system and between the families, and also our desire to advocate for, you know, some of the voices that aren't as heard. And I wonder, you know, just if there might be something that we might be able to do as a group, or even at El Futuro, we have that template that talks about, like, you know, the different things that are needed, and we're able to help provide that to the parents. And, you know, if there might be something regarding communication during this time in COVID that we might be able to put out, so we can send it to schools, so we can have a better understanding of what the child is trying to deal with. So we might be able to do some interpretation of for, you know, some kind of help with the understanding and the communication, or, you know, even have a template that families might be able to send to the school that, you know, that have like certain boxes, like, I don't know what the expectation is, or my child is having a hard time with this, or, you know, just something that puts it a little bit of structure, and that's kind of an easy thing to send out. I wonder if that's something that we might be able to do as a group.
Definitely. And other folks are echoing your thoughts, Lynn. They think those are great ideas for us to act as intermediaries there. Christy, you shared that your teenage daughter set up Zoom meetings for her own friends to connect. I'll just share a very silly thing, but it's just something that I've done. I don't know if everyone's heard of marble racing, but it's something that has been going on online. If you search marble racing, and I have a group of friends that I get together and we watch these inanimate objects racing down tracks. And I know it's something silly and stupid, but it keeps us connected. We're all over the country. And I think it's those little creative things like that that can make a huge difference.
I just wanted to add one more thing that I've been starting, you know, talking to families about, is how to how to make this sustainable, because children are in their remote locations, but how can we help the families kind of think about child development, think about the needs, and think about like safe ways to socially distance and also visit, because that in-person, kids do need that in-person connection. So helping people kind of think outside the box from the black and white, I'm either all in my house or I'm not. And just kind of thinking about different ways to do that. That's one of the things that's been on my mind for my own family and also for clients at this point in time.
Definitely. I know we're getting close to the end here, but I also wanted to touch on this. This is also, I want this to be an opportunity for folks to share, how this is impacting your own lives, especially folks like teachers or that are having to go out there and expose themselves. How are you feeling, and how can we support you in this process? Or we can also keep talking about how we support our communities. Just wanted all the topics out there.
I'll speak for myself. I'm Lori, but I'm in Forsyth County, and it seems like a lot of you all are closer to the triangle and the triad. I spoke at a board meeting. I mean, they had an opportunity for people to give a minute of their time. And basically in my minute, my name was out there, the school I teach at was out there, and I basically said, it's unsafe for us to reopen in person, especially with the rising numbers and all of this. However, I love my job, I love what I do, but I don't want to be a martyr for myself, and I don't want to risk my own birth children and the children that I spend 8 hours a day with. And in saying that, I knew that there would be flack, but I also knew that I was supported, because if I don't advocate for myself, then what am I proving to my students and my own daughters? That, if I don't do that. So, and I spoke to a lot of different people prior to doing that to make sure that I wasn't just speaking of my own personal self-interest, that I wasn't just talking about me every day, putting on a mask and having to wear gloves and all that stuff. But with the rising numbers and then the specific community that I work with and the age of the children that I work with, because I work middle school and high school, I knew the risks, and because of that, I'd like to continue to be able to do this job until I can retire. I don't want to put my health at risk for 9 weeks and then never be able to return to work with the children that I love. So I think that that's an important thing. A lot of coworkers are basically, that kids have to be face to face. Well, kids are resilient. And as somebody mentioned in the chat, after Hurricane Katrina, there was a lot of systemic changes that have to be made, because those systemic evils are brought out when we are all in crisis. And so at this point, I think that these type of conversations are what had to happen, but unfortunately everybody at their comfort level never would have had these conversations. And now when there is the opportunity where things are flux and things can change, this is when the Latinx community has the opportunity to band together and not lie comfortable, or the status quo of our school systems cannot stay comfortable anymore. They have to flux, and they have to use what they have found out, and they can't ignore it. So personally, I'm willing to ride out the storm. I just want to do it safely from my home until the numbers tell me that I can be back in person with my students. And that's a teacher perspective. So I'll be quiet now.
No, appreciate you speaking up, Lori. And I appreciate you modeling. I think it's those important decisions about you putting that voice out there and those opinions out there, it might empower other people to feel safer to put that out there as well. I think that can't be understated. Go ahead, Ismail.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. I'm going to share these with you so you can share out. Luis and I have been having conversations with Legal Aid of NC. They have shared with us a host of documents related to school openings, legal guidance. There's one on here too about specific to Durham, like who are points of contact at each school district, even specific schools that parents can reach out to, any other resources that parents can access for other educational opportunities. It's like, I would say 25 documents that they shared with us. I'm going to share all that with you. Some of them are not going to pertain to other people who are in different counties, but I would also recommend reaching out to legal aids themselves because they're all over North Carolina, so they might have people in your area that have created specific documents for your county. But I'll email that to you so that you can share out to other people.
Yeah, it'd be great if do you have that in a folder, Ismail?
I do not. Right now I have them in just email attachments. I can see if I can create a folder and then share it out with you.
Yeah, that would be great. And then we can just share the Google Drive folder with folks.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a
yes.
final note. Can you hear me? It's
Yes,
Jenny
go ahead.
from the Alliance in Waynesville. I think for me as a parent and as a working parent of small children, it's been very overwhelming. So, and I have to pull out all my resources like mindfulness and other things to remain calm and keep my sanity. But I think it'll be good if maybe we have like a support group for professional parents in the field going through this. I think it's important. It's as I say, it's very overwhelming. You have to deal with your own family, but you also have to help the other families with all the barriers that you all already talk about today, like language and other things. So maybe that's an idea that we can work on to support like working parents in the field.
For sure. And that's make me think that we need to set up a meeting after today and get that going. Seems like I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. It seems like that would be helpful. And that's kind of what we were hoping to do with this space here. And I'll just take this as I guess a segue to wrap us up. You're getting a lot of yeses on the chat, Emily. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for coming on here, for being vulnerable and sharing your fears, your concerns, your ideas. This is exactly what we want these sessions to be. So I think we can follow up after this, and maybe, you know, as the school year gets going, we can have another place where we touch base about how folks are doing and how things are developing as the school year starts. But yeah, with that, I wanted to say thank you very sincerely from all of us at El Futuro for coming on today, for sharing your views. Really appreciate y'all. And please stay connected with us through our La Mesita network. Have Sophia put the link in the chat real quick to our network. It's how you can stay up to date with all of the things that we are doing. Pretty easy to go on there and create a profile and stay connected. So I'll leave it a second for that to go up there. There it is. So thank you all so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next one. And good luck out there.